Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive, into something I'm really excited about. I've seen some of the material, and it's really cool. It's vintage Kimberly mugs.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Have you heard much about these?
I have. I've seen them around, online especially. They're really popular and I'm kind of fascinated with them because they're just mugs. But they've really taken off.
It's true, and I've seen some pretty high prices on them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's surprising is that they were once, just a dime store item.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about that. Like, give us a little history on these mugs. Where do they come from?
Well, they're part of the Anchor Hawking Fire King line.
Right, I knew that part. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a huge glassware company back in the mid 20th century. I think it started in the 1940s.
Okay, so these mugs are from the 60s. Is that right?
Yeah, the Kimberly mug came out in the 1960s, and at that time they were just, an everyday mug.
So how did they become so popular? Like, what happened?
Well, it's funny how things kind of come back around.
Right, it's all cyclical.
Yeah, nostalgia is a big factor. I think people remember them from their childhood or, their parents' or grandparents' kitchens.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a cozy feeling about them.
Yeah, and then also mid-century design is really in right now.
Oh, that's true?
And the Kimberly mug with its, kind of clean lines and that diamond pattern, it fits right into that aesthetic.
Yeah, that diamond pattern is really cool. I've heard some people call it diamond pineapple.
Yeah, I've heard that
Do
too.
we know, like, where that design came from?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact origin, but I think it was probably a combination of, practicality and aesthetics.
Okay, sure.
Like that textured surface gives you a good grip.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then also, I think it helped prevent the mugs from sticking together when they were stacked.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. And of course, it's just visually appealing too.
It is. It's very eye-catching. And you know what else is really eye-catching? The colors. Looking at the material you sent me, it's like a whole rainbow of, like, 70s colors.
Yeah, they came in a lot of different colors, which is part of their appeal.
So what were, like, some of the most popular ones?
Well, blue is always a classic.
Sure.
And then you've got that kind of yellow or brown that's very 70s.
Yeah, very retro.
Yeah, and then there's a rare one called blood orange, which is really sought after by collectors.
Blood orange. I've never even seen that one.
It's a beautiful color, kind of a deep reddish orange.
Wow. So now I'm realizing I wouldn't even know if I had a real Kimberly mug or a fake one. What should people look for?
Yeah, that's important because there are a lot of replicas out there now with their popularity.
So how do you know?
The most reliable way to tell is by the markings. Authentic Kimberly mugs, they usually have the Anchor Hawking logo
Okay.
or the Fire King name,
And where would those be?
usually on the bottom.
Okay.
But, they can vary a little bit depending on when the mug was made.
So, like, different eras of production will have slightly different markings.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so interesting for collectors.
So it's like a little puzzle you have to figure out, when it was made based on the markings.
Right, and of course the condition of the mug is important too.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's like pristine, that's going to be worth more.
Yeah, and for those rare colors like that blood orange we talked about,
Right.
finding one with the correct markings and in perfect condition, that's like the holy grail.
Wow. So it's not just about the color, it's about the markings too.
Exactly. It all adds to the value and the history.
So you really have to do your research.
You do if you want to be a serious collector.
Now, you mentioned that there are a lot of replicas out there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So are there any, like, telltale signs that someone could look for to spot a fake?
Well, the counterfeiters are getting pretty good.
Oh, no.
But there are still some things to watch out for, like the font used in the Anchor Hawking markings.
Oh, okay.
It's very specific, so a replica might use a slightly different font, or the lettering might be a little off.
So you really have to pay attention to the details.
You do, and also look at the glass itself.
Okay.
Fire King glass has that kind of milky opalescence.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's hard to replicate perfectly.
So if it looks too clear,
Yeah, that could be a red flag.
and I guess if the price is too low,
Exactly. If a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is.
good advice. Okay, so let's say you found a genuine Kimberly mug.
Okay.
How do you take care of it? Like, what's the best way to keep it in good condition?
Well, the most important thing is to hand wash them.
Oh, new dishwashers.
No dishwashers. The harsh detergents and the high heat can damage the finish.
Oh, I see.
And especially with vintage glassware, you want to be really careful.
So hand washing only.
Yes, and avoid extreme temperature changes too.
What do you mean?
Like don't pour boiling water into a freezing cold mug
Oh, okay.
and never put them in the microwave.
So they're a little bit delicate?
They are. It's glass after all.
That's true.
Yeah.
So gentle hand washing. No extreme temperatures and no microwave.
Exactly. You want to treat them with respect.
Like little pieces of history.
Exactly. And if you take good care of them, they'll last for years and years.
I love that idea that you're kind of a caretaker for these mugs.
Yeah, it's a fun way to think about it.
So for people who are now totally interested in Kimberly mugs, where would you recommend they go to learn more?
Well, there's a website called Jewelry Bubble.
Jewelry Bubble.
Hmm.
Okay.
Ah.
I wouldn't have thought of that for vintage mugs.
I know it's a bit of a strange name, but they have a great selection of Kimberly mugs, and they often have really good descriptions and photographs.
Oh, so you can really see the details and the marking.
It's a great resource for collectors of all levels.
That's awesome. So we've covered a lot of ground today. The history, the design, the colors, the markings, even how to care for them.
Yeah, it's been a good deep dive.
It really has. And what stands out to you the most about these Kimberly mugs?
I think it's how they've gone from being just an everyday item to being so sought after by collectors.
It's true. They're more than just mugs now.
They represent a certain era, a certain aesthetic.
And a certain quality.
Yeah, they were made to last.
It makes you wonder what things from today will be considered vintage treasures in the future.
It does, right? Like, what will people be collecting 50 years from now?
Maybe our boring old coffee mugs will be worth something.
You never know.
That's true. Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has.
I've learned so much about Kimberly mugs.
Me too.
And I'm sure our listeners have too. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And for everyone listening, keep an eye out for those vintage treasures. You never know what you might find. Jewelry Bubble. Huh. Yeah, it is a little strange for vintage mugs.
It is. I know, but they've got a really great selection, and the descriptions are good too.
Oh, that's perfect because you can see, if the markings are correct and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And they usually have good photos too, so you can really see the details.
That's awesome. So as we wrap up here, I'm just curious, what do you think is like the most amazing thing about Kimberly mugs?
I think it's just how they've gone from being so ordinary to being so collectible.
Yeah, I know you mean that they're more than just mugs now, right?
They are. They're like a little piece of history.
And they're still so popular.
Yeah, I think people are drawn to that kind of simple design and the durability.
And those colors are amazing.
The colors are fantastic.
It makes you wonder what things from today will be considered vintage in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Like, what will people be collecting 50 years from now?
Maybe our old iPhones?
Maybe. Or those smart speakers.
Or those funny socks with the sayings on them?
Yeah, who knows?
Well, this has been a really fun deep dive. I've learned so much about Kimberly mugs.
Me too. They're much more interesting than I thought.
I know, right? I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot too.
Hopefully they're inspired to start their own collections.
Yeah, go out there and find those vintage treasures.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's been great.
Thanks for joining us. And to everyone listening, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.